listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello and thank you for watching. We've had a little break, but we are back. And you just asked me, Charlie, it was good. We were kind of, first time we've done the podcast together for a couple of weeks, even though, we do other podcasts, but normally there's like a third person. Yep. We invite a third.
Yeah.
Someone else fresh there to make sure.
Hey, me and my podcast partner saw you across the bar.
Well, in the same way as even when you might have someone over, like you're on a bit more of your behavior, like you're checking everything's right. Do they need another drink? Yep. Are they sitting comfortably? Would they like to listen to something else? Watch, you're attendant to their needs. You're on a bit more of your best behavior in front of other people, where we are a couple who have, been together a long time. Sometimes there's an element of, just a tap on the shoulder in the middle of the night about the whole thing. You don't have to go to dinner. We don't have time for that. So you asked me if I was doing a backup. And I'd forgotten that I was going to do a backup. And for people listening at home, that means Charlie and I record this on a program.
Virtual studio.
Called Riverside. And so it takes both ends and then, it all gets combined together as if we're, in the same place. But we record a separate feed just at our own ends in case something goes wrong. And so it very much is just the backup. If Riverside doesn't upload or if, it cuts out or something, you've just got a backup. But it's only of the individual audio. So when I'm recording at my end, it is just me. And what I realized is that once that backup isn't needed, once the podcast is up and about, technically, like a more thorough person, they would go through the backups and then they would erase all the backup files so that, there's more room on your computer or just out of it. Well, I don't need that anymore. The very reason that it existed, there's no longer a reason for that. But as I went to do my little backup, had a look at how many other backed up episodes I have that I haven't erased. And if I died and someone found my computer and didn't know that I did a podcast, that would be a very weird file of hundreds of hours of me seemingly having a conversation with no one. In fact, we could put it out as a template where you can make your own episode of TOFOP, right? We each could put out we do the one that's the two of us together. Then each week we release our own ends of it and people could have their own conversations. They could fill in their own conversations with us.
It's like the way breakfast morning shows will cut up an interview to make a politician sound like they're giving dirty answers to a question or something like that. You could easily do that with us. I don't know. You just got me thinking about the way this show backs up. I'm not saying that TOFOP needs to be preserved for eternity, but is there infinite storage space in the cloud? We're just assuming all these episodes that we've recorded that have all been uploaded somewhere. I know we had a hard drive going at one point back three mics ago. We had a hard drive where we were logging raw data and finished episodes. I don't know what's going on with the archive system. I'm assuming since we've gone to Riverside, everything, Two Guys, One Cup, this, Philosophy is all getting logged into the Riverside cloud. But are there limits to that? What do they do? Do they hold on to that as long as we subscribe? Do they give it back to us?
I don't know how any of it works. Can we run out of cloud?
I honestly don't know. How much cloud is there?
And if the cloud goes down, because there's always stories about the ABC. So ABC archives used to be, a version of the internet before there was the internet. They would keep all the things that had been on ABC TV because storage space and the technology back then, that was extremely costly. There's those nightmare stories about the fact that there's episodes of Doctor Who that don't exist because the BBC needed the tape space and they taped over them.
With an episode of Countdown or something.
Right? And so is there a point where, because I mean, everything is content now, right? It's 24/7 content. Is there a limit for there's a limit for our capacity to consume content, but is there a limit for our capacity to store content? And if everything is content and you're storing everything, what's the point of storing anything?
Yeah, I think yes is the answer. There is a limit to storage space in current computing terms, which is why there's such a push towards quantum computing, because then it becomes like, I think, either infinite or exponentially so great that storage no longer becomes an issue. Because at the moment, we're limited by the physical size of transistors. I'm reading a book by a theoretical physicist at the moment that I'm not understanding, which is all about quantum computing. But this is like the dumbest, take the layman's terms and then dumb it down about 7 layers and you get to what my understanding of it is. But that is what we're trying to get to, is like just exponentially powerful computers, and that would then result in sort of infinite storage. So I mean, you could even, theoretically, you could even reconstruct, like if AI gets to the point where where it understands everything so well that there may be lost episodes of Doctor Who or even TOFOP, but you could say to the AI, hey, we know that they talked about this. Could you, do your like 90% accuracy, reconstruct this missing episode of TOFOP? It's about Superman and his enormous dick or something like that.
But because we couldn't, because we're different people, right? And this would be the interesting thing about that thought experiment. So say, for example, it was an early episode of TOFOP, right?
And I believe there is a missing episode of TOFOP. I think there is in the TOFOP lore, it's like episode 37 or something, or there's an episode that no one can find that doesn't exist.
Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, like TOFOPologists out there will know better than me, but
let us know. I would like to know about that. I wasn't aware that was the case. There's also, just on this, I'll put it maybe I'll put a pin in this and come back to it, but remind me to talk to you about the missing episode of FOFOP.
Okay.
Because I just want to follow through this idea of, because I've been talking about for years this idea that podcasts would be perhaps something that would be easy to replicate because you've got so much available information. And again, dumb it down 7 times past the layman's version, right? But my layman's understanding is the more information the AI has to work with, the more accurate the thing that they can produce at the other end. That seems to be right? But the majority of the TOFOP, so if you were programming that AI to replicate episode 37, are you only feeding in the first 36 episodes of TOFOP? Because that's all the information, because that's a limited data set, 37 episodes of TOFOP. That's not a full picture of you and I. Or would it be more or less accurate if they then put in all the rest of TOFOP? Because that's us growing up and changing as people. So would that skew the data, or would that give the AI more information and it could extrapolate better? Like, even because it would still know more about us, it could make an extrapolation of what our opinions on those things would be at that time.
It's interesting conundrum, because we often repeat ourselves. Hey, we've talked about this before. There are definitely kind of themes, but in terms like of the broad sense, like we have moved through our kind of there was the Adam Sandler phase, and then there was like the rock phase, and, I became a father, like all these kind of things. We moved to the Northern Rivers. Like there's been all these different eras, so that none of that would be relevant. But I wonder.
But also, so all right, here's the thing then. So say it was episode 1 to 36 they put in, right? We're trying to replicate 37 the best we can. We believe that we've got to get rid of any
references past 2011 or whatever it is.
Yeah, but also most of the things that we talked about, or the jokes in the way that we made them, over the next, hundreds of episodes, we've talked about how our positions on those things might have changed or developed. And so the audience who listens now has an understanding of what that journey has been, right? So, but if we use the AI just 1 to 36 to AI episode 37, and it came up with, based on the conversations we've had then, something that was non-PC by today's standards, would we get cancelled? Would we get cancelled because the AI came up with a joke based on us? based on us back then and put it in this AI episode, like would we be able to defend ourselves?
Well, people get cancelled for tweets from 10 years ago. So I think, yes. I mean, even though it's not us actually saying it, it's not a direct quote, it's been mined from our content. And if people couldn't tell
I think, you know what I think is a problem with progress, honestly, not with progress itself, but something that holds us back from progressing.
Is this your pivot towards conservatism?
No, it's the opposite, okay. I reckon. Oh, well, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'll say it and then you can decide what it is. No, I think that sort of stuff holds us back, right? This idea that because then people are afraid to change quickly because they think that they're going to be, busted for having an outdated opinion. I think it's great sometimes when you go, hey, 10 years ago you thought this and that's really outdated then. That, to me, that's a sign that things have progressed, that things have changed and they've done it in a quick fashion. Like that's actually a good thing. And so what if, because we're coming up with new ways to like understand how we use the internet. What if we just brought in some fresh start legislation? Like we just agree on a number, whatever it is, 7 years or something. Like there should be some sort of but just every 7 years on social media and even with podcasts maybe, everything's erased.
Yep. So if you want, you've got an opinion amnesty.
Yeah. But just you get a fresh start every 7 years. Yeah. Like, they say is that kind of thing again, dumbing it completely down, but like that our skin essentially regenerates, every 7 years in cells or whatever. It's like, give us that for the internet. It doesn't mean you can't be accountable, but it gives you the opportunity to, like, every 7 years have a look at some of it, what your opinions were and everything, and you can do a little update.
I think that's a good idea. I'd be interested to know like how, because some people, because that is if you look at the sort of culture war side of it, that is the argument, especially around like comedy, is like, you've got certain comedians who are coming out and saying, oh, you know what, like when I did those jokes, it was a different world and, I certainly wouldn't do those jokes now, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got other comedians who are like, cancel this, that's the name of their new special, or censored, or, like triggered, or whatever the fuck it is. So I would be interested to know if it remains relatively 50-50 or if you've got more people willing to move on.
Yeah. Well, I would say, okay, so just two things on that comedy one, because you're absolutely right. And I think there's two thoughts on that, which is the first one is that there are some people I definitely think would be more open to, like, smart people who I think that a lot of the reason they don't want things to change is because they made something that was great at the time and now it's being viewed through modern eyes and judged and people don't think it is. And so you have to, like, change is bad for you. I think if we had more forgiveness of, no, that was of its time and it's a good thing. Like, look at the progress we've made, but it doesn't mean that was bad then. I think people would be more open to it. But there's also money in it, right? Yeah. Some people have monetized it. Like you said, that's why the tours are called, you can't say this, like, like I've been triggered, or like, people, I've been censored, you can't say anything to what happened to the larrikin.
Yeah, where you can't do a 1 hour special on a streaming service anymore, and my 1 hour special, hour special on a streaming service.
My 1 hour special on Netflix called You Can't Say This, Things I Can't Say Anymore.
It's funny. I was talking to someone a couple of days ago about this very thing. Like there was that sort of, I feel like we've gone past that phase of, I know occasionally people still keep receipts and dig up old tweets and stuff, but there was a period of time where it was like Molly Ringwald wrote that opinion piece saying, the Breakfast Club is problematic. And someone found like a John Wayne interview from Playboy from 1965. And it's like, oh, wow, he was really racist. And I sort of feel like that moment has passed where we're trying to go back and, like look at history through a modern lens. I think people have settled.
I feel like it's like, we're never going to get progress if we revisit the past through a modern lens. Like that doesn't help anybody to go back. Like, of course things were different. Yeah. They used to burn witches in the town square, right? Like,
that's problematic, Will. I don't know. I take a firm stand on burning people at the stake for witchcraft. I don't know about you, but I feel like maybe that's problematic.
Yeah. So, like, progress is a good thing. And I think sometimes the thing that holds progress back is people. I agree that if, say, for example, some like director might be making a living out of, I invented feminism, and they go back and find out that actually they did some really problematic things when it came to women. That's someone being a hypocrite.
That sounded like
Well, I do. The more I said that sentence, the more it sounded like Joss Whedon.
It's like very
I didn't
specific.
start with the intention to talk about Joss Whedon, but by the end of the sentence, I was like, this sounds a lot like Joss Whedon.
it was just this phrase, I invented feminism.
But like that's someone saying this person's being disingenuous. They're being a hypocrite. But if it's more like somebody going, I used to believe this, and I now have learnt that this, that's good. That's progress. That's actually what we're looking for. So, like, I think that should be encouraged and celebrated.
Well, there's a lot of talk about Eddie Murphy. I don't know if it's still happening, but he was going to get back on the stand-up circuit, or he's going to at least do a special or something like that. But then I'd read a couple of interviews where he was like, I'm embarrassed of a lot of that stuff from Delirious and Raw. Like, that was a 21-year-old me saying those jokes. And part of his kind of apprehension was like, if I was to do it again, if people are coming to see that Eddie Murphy, like doesn't exist anymore. Like, his Disney man, Eddie Murphy these days.
Yeah, he's not doing the you can't say this anymore tour.
Yeah.
And that's why I'd love to see. I actually think I've talked about this before, but Eddie Murphy, some of those jokes on those specials are crook by even the standards of the day. Some would argue, like not even just historically, but certainly if they were appropriate by the standards of the day, even most people moved on from those. It was. So they became out of date very quickly, but they were the two biggest, he was the biggest comedy star in the world. They were the two biggest specials in the world. And then he stopped. He stopped doing it. Now, any other comedian like that who'd started like that, if he kept doing it, you would have seen what the journey became. He might have been someone who leaned into that more and that became all his shtick, or he might have been someone like the early TOFOP episodes. Yes, I am comparing the early TOFOP episodes to Raw and Delirious. Because Charlie and I used to wear red leather suits when we recorded TOFOP. But you would have heard him talk about that, right? You would have heard him talk about his developing thoughts around those things, and he would have done new stand-up, and you would have got a broader picture. But because he's always been that 18, 20-year-old like Eddie Murphy, with those dumb young people opinions, they're trapped there for they're immortalized.
Set in
Of course he doesn't think those same things. Of course he wouldn't want to be doing that sort of comedy. He'd be a monster if he did.
When it comes to progress, Will, can I update you on some progress of mine?
Yeah. Yeah, please. Oh, nice. Charlie, where's Charlie? Hey, nerd. Could you please go and get Charlie?
I'm back, Will.
Oh, Charlie.
I'm right here.
Oh, my God.
What's wrong?
Man, there was this, I worried about you for a second. There was this nerd sitting where you were. Oh, the nerd's back. I hope you didn't hear me, nerd. Where's Charlie? Bring Charlie back.
The square root of an isosceles triangle is equal to...
Oh, my God. Nerd.
Yes, I have bit the bullet. I have my prescription reading glasses.
Yep.
By God, what a different world it is when you can see. I really have honestly feel like I have superpowers.
Yeah.
It's
the first time you, and look, I've done an update since, I've been on the reading glasses. It's gone both ways. So I'm at a restaurant last night, with Justin. I'm not getting Justin to read the menu because I cannot. My arm is not long enough that I can get far enough away because I didn't have my glasses with me. Yeah. And I didn't think I was going to be doing any reading. And then I realized, the menu, of course. But the upgrade, I was like, oh, yeah, all right. But that first time you put on glasses, you don't realize how blind you've been for so long.
Yeah. What it was, the one that really got me was the modem password. Was when I was like, I can never read that fucking thing. And I've always taken photos of it and enlarged the photo. And so I put these on, I'm like, I can read it. Is it? And then I've gone to the pantry and I started looking at cans of food. And I'm like, I can read all the ingredients on these things. But it's everything, my phone, the computer, I'm sort of a bit worried because I remember you talking about how once you put them on, that's it.
Oh,
your
yeah.
eyes are like, fuck
No,
this,
no.
we're never going back to working
That's it.
full-time ever. Like,
100%.
we are now part-time eyeballs. You've got some
Yeah.
other eyes. We've done 46 years of heavy lifting. You can give to the other guys. So I spoke to the optometrist about that. I said, my mate reckons that your eyes give up once you put. And he's like, well, no. Like, he's gone, your eyes can work, and they are working without glasses. But your brain is the one interpreting all the data. And your brain is
Your
like,
brain
fuck,
gives
I
up.
have to work like 30% extra to kind of like enlarge this font so he can read. If he just puts these glasses on, man, I can relax. So he said, it's not actually your eyes. Your eyes are doing what they normally do. It's your brain. So your brain just gets more conditioned.
You know what I love about that though?
What? Same thing.
I can do the same thing. Why are you even differentiating? I love old mate from Big Eye, the optometrist. It's like, the eyes, mate, your eye's fine. The eye is not the problem here. It's the bloody brain that's letting you down.
Well, do you have this, like, is this something that still happens to you where, like, so if I take them off, I'm blind for about 20 seconds. Like, everything just gets all fuzzy and my eyes have to realign.
No, I think, less so.
Right. So I think this is what's going on.
I think at the start,
I'm taking my baby steps.
Yeah.
My brain is taking baby steps because it loves this. I put this on. It's like, I can actually see you clearly. I can see the detail in the background behind you. I can read everything else. But when I do this, it's just like everything becomes a haze. And I'm kind of still hanging on to the non-glasses. I like when I'm working, when I'm writing or reading anything like close, then I put them on. But sort of more day to day when I should be wearing, like when I'm at restaurants and stuff, I'm still like holding out, like just because the optometrist said,
"Oh, well, that was me last night." It like
was it low light as well, like low light.
Yes,
my eyes are for
it was
shit.
nighttime. I did a gig during the day, and then we went to like a restaurant at nighttime. And I, of course, like I'm beyond, like I just can't. I could not, like if I'd needed to, I couldn't have been able to identify anything on the menu. Like I just wouldn't have been able. I'd be like eggplant, I guess, maybe, right? So it was. I'm not at that point where I remember to take my glasses for things like that. It's still for work and, like you said, reading, doing something that you know when you've got a task. But I definitely need them like for ingredients and stuff around the kitchen. Like, you know, how long do you bang this in the oven for? Like, I would not know if I didn't have my glasses.
This is not like normal. Like these glasses are not bringing my eyes back to normal level. They're super, right? Like. It's better than...
Well, I mean, I think that they're back to what... Yeah, when you drove this car off the lot, right? You know, like
46 years ago? No, you mean... Or more like,
right?
More like teens, right? When my eyes were fully grown. Like when your eyes stop growing.
Oh, I don't... Like, oh.
No, because don't your eyes stay the same size? Isn't there like a weird...
I don't know.
We've brought in a little layman facts on this episode. I'm pretty sure your eyes stay the same size.
Okay. Do your eyes
Are you looking it up?
grow? I'm going to look up do your eyes grow. That's what I've gone.
That's the first thing that came up.
Do your eyes grow as you age? Okay, here we go. Is it true that we are born with our eyeballs already full grown? No, it is not true that the eyeballs are fully grown at birth. The eyes undergo considerable growth, especially during the first 2 years of life.
Right.
With a second growth spurt, here we go.
Yep.
Around puberty.
Yeah,
so
right.
you're right.
Puberty
like,
eyes.
So
your eyes get pubes. At my school,
okay.
it was hell. Going to an all boys school, guys going around going, "Your eyes got pubes yet? Your eyes got pubes."
The length of the eye of a newborn is about 16.5 millimeters, while a fully grown adult eye. So I've given you the baby eye.
Yeah.
16.5 millimeters. What's a fully grown adult eye, do you think?
3.5 mil.
Hang on.
So you say, well, 16.
16.5.
Sorry, 32, 35 mil.
Only 24. So it doesn't actually grow that much more.
What I'm realizing too with these glasses is I've got to get my ring light. Look at this. I look like I'm in a poster for some kind of like 60s sci-fi film.
So Charlie's literally got the rings glowing and they're green in his eyes on his glass. Now he's distracted by that. He seems to be in a trance.
I've really got to change this. Like, you know, I built this podcast studio custom built for two guys to get together and chat. And I'm thinking like, I'm gonna reconfigure this whole thing so it's just a tiny little booth without all this doohickeys. I get glasses. All of a sudden, I age by 20 years.
I was like 20 years. I was like,
all these gadgets and doohickeys and whatchamacallits.
You made one of your video doohickeys?
I got too much stuff going on is what I'm trying to say. Like, too many reflective surfaces. You got things bouncing off there. Now the glasses are just another, like I'm having to tilt my head. So
there we go. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that looks pretty cool. That could be our poster.
That's good visual stuff. It's a good time to plug that people can watch the video of these podcasts on our Patreon page.
Full videos on Patreon.
Full videos on Patreon, but also on the Patreon page. So speaking of archives, I just said I was going to come back to this and then we can come back to the glasses, but I was just reminded of
I got
it.
nothing,
So there was
nothing else on glasses.
Okay. I mean, glasses updates as we go.
Okay.
I feel like we've put a pin in the fact that you now have glasses and we can follow this adventure as it unfolds. Did you get the ones with the blue? Did you get the blue lens, so that you can
look at
there's
computers.
a blue, yeah.
I didn't get blue blockers. Is that what it like? It's like it's got
no.
the blue,
There's just a thing the
blue blocker
optometrist
technology.
does. I mean, it might be. It might be patented blue blocker technology. Who knows? But there is, there's like a lens that you can get that makes it easier to stare at your computer.
I'm sure that does it look just like a normal glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think I must have because I told him I predominantly work on my computer and that's what I need to be able to see. So. I was actually the actual like the choice of glasses was it was actually quite telling because I had this really great guy like helping me pick out glasses, and I was sort of looking at glasses like sunglasses. Oh, this is like a trendy, cool thing, and I tried on. This guy was very honest with his feedback, like gave me direct, honest feedback. I'd try on a pair of like more fashiony kind of specs, and he's like, "No." Don't wear those. Just go for something traditional, mate. Like, don't try and pull off those clear, framed, round, like advertising exec.
Absolutely don't do that. Even you describing that has made me feel ill.
Skin crawl.
Like, did Gemma get a say?
No, she was.
Did Gemma get a say? Would Gemma want to say?
She would want to say, pretty much, she styled me to her liking for the last 20 years. So I'm sure. If I had brought home the clear framed, round, horn-rimmed,
she would have left.
Creative exec.
She would have said, "The day's come, my owner. The day I've been telling you about, it has come. Grab your go bag.
Hug your daughter one last time." So I went conservative, but he was really good. Like when I was straight out of kind of the sort of safe path, he was like, "Mate, look." Just get something that looks. She likes them both. So I've got two sets. I've got one for the car and one for here, the office. And I just went for something that would make me look more like Ryan Reynolds because I feel like Ryan Reynolds is the style icon for glasses. Like he's just transitioned into being a glasses guy, and it happened so gradually and effortlessly. None of us noticed.
I didn't notice.
See? You didn't notice, but check it. Anytime you look at a photo of Ryan Reynolds now, he's wearing glasses.
Can't even think of him in glasses.
Really?
No.
Type in Ryan Reynolds.
I'm not looking at Ryan Reynolds a lot. Where are you seeing Ryan
you're off
Reynolds
social.
all the time?
Are you on social media?
Is he? Of course he's off. I don't really mention it, but I'm off social media.
Yeah, well, he's often posting and he's got glasses on.
Oh, yeah, he does too.
He's become a glasses guy in the same way that
does.
He's another glasses celeb. Like a famous glasses celeb, like the guy from Weezer.
Rivers Como.
Is he related to the television station in Melbourne?
Yeah.
Como.
the Como, the South Bank, the Weezer Hotel.
Weezer Hotel.
Cameron James did an episode of FOFOP.
Right.
A couple of years ago.
Oh, that's right.
Told a story about the fact that he'd been writing for the roaster Paul Hogan. The person who arranges these roasts, Shane Jacobson, and I can say this now, people would know Shane Jacobson, Kenny, but a very popular Australian comedian and host, and he got mad at Cameron, got very mad at Cameron. And I can tell this story because Cameron is now publicly telling this story. He told this on the most recent episode because I have been very good about this the whole time. He told it on the most recent or a couple episodes ago of the Little Dum Dum Club. So if people want to hear Cameron, and I won't give away anything that Cameron didn't talk about on that podcast, but he told the story of the fact that Shane Jacobson, the most beloved, like one of the friendliest, most beloved, iconic Australian, celebrities, and and I love Kenny. What a funny fucking movie Kenny is. But Shane Jacobson's got this real everywhere man, good-natured, so Cameron came on FOFOP, talked about his experience, but actually it was a really interesting conversation. I didn't think that Cam had, we were careful not to, ruin anything or go too far. I thought it was quite an interesting insight. Anyway, Shane Jacobson got mad at Cam. Didn't call me, got mad at Cam, which was interesting to me.
So, but was he mad at the content of what was said, or just the fact he was talking about it at all?
Well, all of that, it turns out. So here's the thing. I'm okay with the fact that, and I was even in the interview, or in the chat, trying to, make sure we didn't, it was a TV show that was being made, so I didn't want to give away anything that would spoil. But I actually thought, oh, well, here's some good, we're talking about it in an irreverent way, but it still might actually get some more people who wouldn't have watched it to watch it, right? And, he was very complimentary about Paul Hogan, who was the person that the roast was about. And, most of even the critical things that he said in the episode were about, say, people who weren't comedians doing comedy, but it was in the context of this is not their job. This is...
And it's a roast, right?
Well, this was the main point, right?
Okay.
Literally the thing you are doing is a roast.
Yeah.
And you're mad that someone is on a podcast slightly comedically roasting the roast? What, you can't roast the roast? Is that the fucking rule?
Yeah.
You literally are doing a fucking roast, and we are having a mild little, not even a full fucking roast, just a mild little reheat of a fucking roast, and you're mad. You, the fucking roaster in the first place, is mad at some miscellaneous roasting.
Was Shane the roast master general? Is that what they call the MC?
I mean...
Who's the guy in the American radio? Jeff Ross, right?
Jeff Ross.
He's the king, and he's the roast master general. Is that like a term applied to all roast, or is that just a Jeff Ross?
I don't know. Maybe you have to raise to the status of Roastmaster General once you join the Roastmaster Army.
Yeah.
don't immediately just become the Roastmaster
General. You're
a
civilian roaster at this stage.
Yeah.
You're just going through basic roast
Shane
training.
Jacobson's probably in they've only done a couple of these. So he's more like your Army Reserve. He's the Roastmaster Army Reserve. Yeah. So just most of the time you can find him down the IGA, but occasionally when needed, he'll come in as a Roastmaster. Again, nothing was critical about Shane in this late chat. It was just a fun chat about the thing. And if Shane had genuinely had an issue with my podcast, I was like, you could just call me, rather than some young guy who'd been writing on the show who's just come on a podcast and somehow in your world. But yelled at Cameron.
Oh, really?
And said, yelled at him for a long time and said, you've defamed me. This would be the equivalent of how would you like it if I went on the project and said you were a pedophile?
Hang on, I've got to know what what the light roasting was that brought this simile.
Nothing to do, it's the biggest overreaction you've ever, and again, I've been sitting on this story for a year and a half, but Cam's finally told this story because, I did the right thing because I didn't want Cam to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And he was obviously really worried about it at the time and he apologized and because he honestly didn't think that he hadn't intended to kind of do anything wrong. So he was trying to be good about it and Shane had been so over the top. And I was like, one of those things where you're like, I hope Shane rings me because, you've started to process the 8-hour argument you have, including the whole roast the roast thing. I'd certainly I had a list of my little things that I was going to rebut the arguments with and it never happened. And we pulled down the episode and, Cam writes on Gruen and I'm a really big fan of Cam. I think he's fantastic and I wanted to be protective of him in that situation. And anyway, Cam told the story that had happened on the podcast. He was on with Tony Martin. So it's a really good episode. You can listen to Cam tell that story. But I saw Cam at Gruen at the final Gruen, and I said, would you mind if we put the episode behind the Patreon?
Ah, that's a good idea.
He said, now that you're telling the story of the episode, would you mind if we just like reposted it on the Patreon? So I was wondering, it goes to where is it? Like, do we have it still? Does it exist somewhere? But if it does, what do you think about that? Can we put it behind the Patreon?
Yeah, I definitely think we should do that. I mean, that's kind of what the Patreon's for, is offensive content that pisses off Shane Jacobson. In fact, we should just have a dedicated channel where we just put up stuff that angers Shane Jacobson. You know what? Charlie and Boots wasn't that good a movie.
Yeah. You know what, Shane? That is my dog.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to find it. Like, I guess it was pre-Riverside days, right? 2 years ago. So
it was comedy festival, not like this year, but so it was April, like a year and a half ago.
So Mike Liberale would.
It was in person. We recorded it, but it was up. It was posted, and then we took it down because obviously that's when Shane got
I think
mad.
it'll be easy enough to find. Should we just call Mike now? Podcast Mike, and just see. Because was he the producer on it?
Yeah.
Let me just call him.
Okay.
Because I think, hang on, let's make sure that I'm connected. Because he would definitely have it if it was. Okay, we're connected. Great. Just call Mike. Can you hear that? Come on, Mike, you got to answer. Your kind of bosses are ringing. Jeez, this is bad if he doesn't answer.
Oh.
Come on, Mike. What's he doing?
Sitting by his phone,
Sunday
staring
morning.
at it, going, I don't need to deal with this right now. Midday at a Sunday. He's probably in church. He might be in church.
He might be. He's a good Catholic boy.
Yeah.
Letting down our show, though.
Oh, man.
Come on, Mike.
Also, his phone rings a long time before it
I'm
goes to the
calling him on
voicemail.
WhatsApp.
Oh, okay.
Should I try his number and leave a voicemail message?
Yeah, absolutely. He might not have his WhatsApp on. Do you call him on WhatsApp all the time?
Yeah, we mostly communicate on WhatsApp.
All right.
Hang on.
Well, the good news is after getting a missed WhatsApp call and a missed phone call, he'll definitely think there's an emergency.
All right. This is his regular phone.
Okay.
And I just was texting with him like half an hour ago about two guys in the cup. So what's someone doing at 12 o'clock on a Sunday, midday on a Sunday?
Exactly 12 o'clock on a Sunday.
The person you are calling is not available. Please leave a short message and it will be sent as an audio message.
You do it.
Okay. Mike, it's Will. We're on the podcast at the moment and we're trying to track down. Remember the episode of FOFOP with Cam James that we had to pull down? We're thinking about putting it behind the Patreon wall now that Cam's telling that story publicly. So do you think we could do that? Do you know where it is? Please contact us at TOFOP.com.
You better call us back. I'll leave the phone on, so if he calls us back, we can interrupt the show to do that. I did a rare 2 weeks in a row visit to the cinema to check out the cultural phenomenon that is Barbenheimer. First Barbie,
but you did it
Oppenheimer.
over 2 weeks. You didn't do like the
first one
weekend
was
experience.
Was probably irresponsible parenting. Iona,
you took Iona to see Oppenheimer.
Yeah. She was like, "I'm seriously conflicted about that man who created a weapon that had the power to destroy the world." No, because Tuesday is like Iona's home day, and so we normally just do a bunch of like swimming lessons, and we go to the library, and it was a nice day. So we were at the beach in Byron, and when you sort of have a toddler around that age, you sort of don't want to drive too long in the afternoon because if they fall asleep in the drive, then they're not going to sleep at night. So we were in Byron Bay. We'd had a great long day at the beach. And I thought, geez, if I get her in the car now and take her home, then she's going to sleep before dinner and then she won't go. So why don't we just stay in Byron as long as we can? So what's something we can do? And I was like, Barbie's showing. But I had read, oh yeah, look, it's a kid's film, but there's this subtext to it and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I might take a risk. She gets scared in animated films. Like I have to fast forward, Disney films when things get a bit scary. Or she doesn't even like people arguing on camera. So I thought, this could be a bit of a gamble. I might have to like take her out if things get too adult at any point. So we go into the cinema, and she loves, like, she's seen the trailer. She watched it like hundreds of times and really dug it.
Okay.
Have you seen Barbie?
No.
Okay. There's nothing even vaguely offensive or scary for a child in that film. Like anything that could be sort of like any of the sort of, comment on patriarchy or whatever goes completely over the head. She just liked the scariest thing.
So it's arranged in a way that it can be both enjoyed by kids who are watching it, but then there's like the adult subtext is completely separate to that in a way that wouldn't, like,
100%. There is violence in it, but it's cartoonish violence. Like there is a big fight scene. Michael Cera does a big like sort of fight scene, very Scott Pilgrim-esque fight scene.
Right.
But it's so cartoonish, it doesn't look even vaguely real. And the scariest thing that Iona was most upset by, Will Ferrell plays like the fictional head of Mattel.
Oh yeah, okay.
That they were chasing Barbie and they wanted to get Barbie back. But even those scenes were done in the biggest comparison I can think is Spice World, the Spice Girls movie. I remember sort of seeing that and it's like, there's a bunch of kids here, but the jokes were, I think it's French and Saunders had something to do with the script or whatever. So it works on two levels where there's all these risque kind of jokes or maybe a bit more meta or social commentary happening on one level. But the kids are just saying the dancing and the colors and all that kind of stuff. So I quite dug it. I'm amazed it has had the impact it has, both positive and negative. Like, I think it's a fine film. Like, it's fun, it's enjoyable.
I mean, the positive I get, I mean, I haven't seen, again,
you don't have to see it. You can pick up everything from the commentary on it. Like, nothing about it was surprising to me when I saw it. So even having not seen it.
Here's what I would have, like, I mean, so we talked about, like, the marketing of it on Gruen. And so I was across all that. I'd seen all the marketing and I was just like, this is going to be such a huge hit because, like, they marketed that movie. Like, even when you were looking at the, like, they would do billboards that were just pink, that Barbie pink, and the brand is so identifiable that it would just then have the date down the bottom. There was nothing else on the billboard and people were like, oh yeah, that's an ad for the Barbie movie. Like, the brand is that strong. Like, I mean, you look at the success of like Transformers and all those sort of films, but Barbie's a bigger brand than all of them, like as an iconic brand itself. That pink, the way that it's packaged, Margot Robbie, the fact that she was literally wearing Barbie outfits to the premiere. She was like, Barbie come to life. The way that they had done this slow drip marketing campaign that had only built momentum around it, but at the same time was like constantly this ad for the brand Barbie. And the fact that it was female forward and female focused, I was like, it makes sense to me. And obviously with the director and the writer, like, you were kind of like, okay, I kind of understand what this is going to be. And I reckon this is probably going to be huge. I did not expect any negativity. I just thought there would just be people who loved it and people who were indifferent to it, right? Like I don't want to see the Barbie movie because I have it just isn't it doesn't appeal to me. But I don't have anything against it.
That right-wing manosphere ecosystem, like, they need content just like everyone else. And I feel like they are feasting on this as much as they can because it's actually not that critical. It's not even really critical of men. Like, it's critical of established powers of like a patriarchy. That's what it's. But the message of the film is not, hey, dudes are bad, be better dudes. The message is, hey, everyone needs to be better and don't define yourself in relation to other people. Find out who you are and be happy with who you are first. And you don't have to be Ken to Barbie or Barbie to Ken. It's like you're your own person. And so it's really a message about,
it's pretty easy to say Barbie, but a lot harder to fucking actually deal with in real life.
It's so the level of kind of social commentary and stuff is so like light touch. Like, it's not a deep meditation on any of this stuff. It's a comedy. Like, it's probably as deep as like an episode of The Simpsons or anything like that. It's meant to be taken as kind of like entertainment.
Yeah, it's smart, knowing.
Yeah, but disposable. But utterly disposable. And I think
but it's Barbie also. Like, I mean, that's probably what a Barbie movie should be, right?
Yes, yeah, and they're sort of meta enough.
I mean, there's something wrong with us as a society if we think that the Barbie movie can save anything. You know, like if we're relying on the idea that, like, I mean, I think it's overachieved as a cultural moment. Like, clearly, well, I mean, even just in that idea of like, is she the first female director to direct $1 billion movie? Like, even those sort of milestones. We demand so much of things being these perfect moments, like the Barbie movie to be able to be everything. It's well and truly been more than it could have been, right?
Yeah.
Like, clearly, I think it's already checked that box.
Yeah, I think people had hopes for it, but it is by far and away. I think what's happened, though, is we've also been starved of smart pop culture, like big budget entertainment. Like everything, like Marvel is clearly in some kind of creative spiral at the moment, just everything they're producing. And they are the dominant, like tentpole brand, followed probably by Star Wars or whatever. But all that stuff has been so safe and boring. And the only time someone tried to do something different with it was, the middle of the new Star Wars films. I can't remember the name of the Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, I think.
Is that what it was? And people hated it, like, because Rian Johnson was like, hey, let's turn this into a critique of, hero mythology and all this kind of stuff and subvert. Or, like the Matrix, that bizarre Matrix film's come out, which is just not a Matrix film. It's just a criticism of people who love the Matrix. So I think everyone got scared about, well, let's not do any commentary. And then this one film smartly does it because they don't lean into it too heavily. Like they have their cake and they eat it too. They give the studio what they want in terms of a brand you can market and sell toys on and blah, 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 blah. But then there's also enough kind of smart commentary underneath that people go, okay, well, this is better than Transformers or a Marvel film.
But you also say that it's a comedy, right?
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a comedy movie. And the weird thing is that there isn't much of a budget for a comedy movie generally now. We don't see a lot of comedy movies. Like you used to be able to go to the movies and go and see a comedy, whereas like so a smart comedy that say, Noah Baumbach would write and Greta Gerwig would like direct, those they're not really getting made as much, right? Like for a mainstream audience, like that budget just to make a big mainstream comedy. Whereas like people used to go to mainstream comedies all the time. That just seems to have been eaten up, that space.
I was talking to some younger friends of ours and they were like raving about Barbie. And I said the same thing. I said because I wear glasses now, I'm old. But in the 90s, like we made films like that all the time. Like essentially the closest comparison besides like Spice World I can think of is the Brady Bunch movie. Brady Bunch movie came out in the early 90s and essentially it was a fish out of water story about this, stereotypical sitcom family from the 60s now in the modern day, and none of their values make sense. They seem so quaint and weird and strange. And that's kind of the Barbie movie. She comes from this protected world or, this Barbie land into the real world, and it's that fish out of water contrast. But they made 2 Brady Bunch movies. They made a bunch of those SNL type mid-budget $20 to $30 million comedies. Some would hit, some wouldn't hit, but it was its own industry. But you're right,
But yeah, that's the SNL one is like, I mean, there was all those obviously character, like, your Wayne's Worlds and your Mike Myers like franchises and all those sort of things where you're like, there just used to be a lot of comedies that somebody had thrown some money at,
Do you think The Hangover was probably the last really big one that was like a mid-budget, 30, 40 million maybe, that gross, but they just don't. American Pie, I guess, they're the sort of in the last 20 years, but I can't think of a smaller comedy.
I'm gonna write highest grossing comedies of last decade. How does that? Comedy movies last decade. Yeah, last 10 years. Here we go. All right, here we go. This is good. Okay. Fantastic. These are the 10 highest grossing comedy movies of the last 10 years. This is fun. I like this. I'm going to get you to guess, obviously.
From 10 to 1?
Yeah, from 10 to 1. I'll give you some clues as we go, but this will be actually really, this is fun. Okay. In 10th spot, released in 2014, grossing $270 million. Stars an Australian, although the Australian would not spell the title of the movie the same way as the title of the movie does.
Interesting. My first thought was Isla Fisher. Male or female?
Female, and of Isla Fisher generation, but not Isla Fisher.
Okay, so of that ilk, who's another actress of the Isla Fisher generation who has an oddly spelt name that does not relate to the name of the film? Yeah, how many words in the...
No, so her name. That's not... So the name of the film...
Because she's Australian, Neighbours.
That's the clue.
It's Rose Byrne and it's Neighbours.
That is correct. No, Neighbours.
Well, that's a good clue. Well done.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, that was
Jesus
number
Christ,
10.
That's in the top 10 of the last 10 years. Wow.
Well, it made $270 million, that's not too bad. All right. The 9th film also stars an Australian.
Shane Jacobson, Charlie in Boots.
It is a sequel. It was released in 2015. It's a sequel. There is an Australian in it. Is
it Neighbours too?
No, different Australian in it. Okay. If I was going to, I'll give you a Charlie Clausen style clue about this, right? Okay, if I was making a knockoff, no, this is terrible.
I love it. Go on.
Okay, the name of the actress. If I was making, if in Tom Hanks' Castaway,
okay, Rebel Wilson,
okay,
Pitch Perfect,
right. Yes, Pitch Perfect too.
Okay,
sorry, I got lost in the clue. I was
enjoying how much you were enjoying thinking of the clue.
I was like, I had this image of like Wilson the volleyball, who'd rebelled, and I was trying to put it in words, and I was like, how do I get what's in my head out? It was hard. I actually honestly couldn't describe.
You saw a volleyball riding a motorbike with an earring,
and I was like, how do I say this out loud? And I couldn't. The words couldn't come out. Okay. This is okay. A loose definition of a comedy is what I'm going to say.
Oh, okay.
At number 8, if I was going to start growing some marijuana and I needed to look up instructions on how to do that, I might get one of these.
The constant gardener? No.
Inspired by a true story.
Okay. I might get one of these if I needed to grow weed.
All right. Maybe what about, it also has a different, it's a 2-word title, and one of the words is a different form of media.
High internet?
Green book.
Green book? That's a comedy?
Yeah, well, that's why. Yeah, very loose definition of comedy.
Weird. Yeah. What's the funny scene from Green Book?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when his black friend is told he can't eat in the cafe.
Yeah, I laughed and I laughed.
It was a simpler time. Oh, come on, mate! You can't laugh at that. Oh, we're getting too PC, I know.
In 7th place, made $331 million. It is also a sequel. It was released in 2014. So far we're seeing a lot of 2013, 2014 around where these comedies are coming out. So
Anchorman 2.
Not Anchorman 2, but I really liked both of these films, I will say.
Is it in that same Bad Neighbours? By the way, I still haven't established, was the film called Neighbours or Bad Neighbours?
It says Neighbours.
Okay, yeah, right, that makes sense. I just get confused because there was a rush of films that I just put bad in front of it, like Bad Teacher, Bad Mums, Bad... So is this Bad Mums too?
No, it's a sequel, but the sequel has So you know how like a sequel is sometimes like a Rocky 2, Rocky 3, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes a sequel,
Colon.
Too Fast, Too Furious style will mess with the originally. So this is a slight, the update doesn't come at the end.
Okay. It doesn't come at the end.
No.
All right. So it's something like like, if it was Mad Max, it's like really Mad Max. So is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Give me
another clue. Give me a star. Or would that give it away?
The stars will both give it away.
Okay. Stars. So it's would you say it's like a
absolutely? It's a two-hander.
Is it a rom-com?
It's based. No, not a rom-com. It's based on an original. It has a romantic story underlying it, but it's not a rom-com in any way. It's based on a previous existing piece of IP.
In what form of IP? TV?
TV show.
Oh. It's based on a TV show.
Yeah.
I should get this.
And much like the Brady Bunch movie, it was kind of a comedic update of what was a more serious, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay. I don't know what it is. Tell me.
It stars, I'll give you the stars then, and you can say, it stars, maybe this one gives you a few options. Jonah Hill.
It's 21 Jump Street.
It is
2. 22 Jump Street.
22 Jump Street.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go on, any of these comedies, does any of them have the word bad at the start of them? Is there a bad anything in there?
No.
Okay, great. So I'll stop guessing bad. Bad occupation.
Okay. In sixth place, making $362 million, has been previously mentioned in this episode, but not previously mentioned in this list yet.
Okay.
It is a sequel.
I said Spice World. I said Brady Bunch. It can't be any of those films. It's a sequel.
Nope.
Anchorman 2. No. You said it wasn't.
No, but it is a sequel.
Hangover 2. Hangover 3.
Hangover 3. Part 3.
Which is not, again, loosely defined as a comedy. That's a weird film with not many laughs and very cruel.
I think they were going for laughs, though. I mean, I think they intended it to be a comedy. There's a couple coming up that I'm really going to, anyway.
Speaking of roast, Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis, there's a very funny burn from Jerry Seinfeld in the Jerry Seinfeld episode where he says to Zach Galifianakis, if you guys had stopped at one Hangover film, do you think it would be revered as a comedy classic? And it's so true. Like any shine, it's like The Matrix in a way. Like any shine that film had has just been diluted by how bad the sequels have been.
I mean, you're right in that it won't be considered a classic because of that. I think that there's a great affection for the franchise from a particular type of person, but
bros.
Yeah, but I do agree with you that if they'd just done the one, if it was one and done, people would still look back and go that is like an iconically good film, and the third one is unwatchable. But
they kill a giraffe with an overpass. Like who's? That's not funny. That's horrible.
$362 million it made though. But beating it in fifth place, you will absolutely not know what this film is. Well, maybe this is not true, but it's a foreign film. It made $426 million. It's a French comedy drama about the relationship between a paralyzed man and his caretaker.
Oh, I do know this one. It's called Frenchie Goes to the Market.
It is. The Untouchables, correct. So The Untouchables is...
That's amazing. That was one of the highest grossing comedies of the last 10 years.
$426 million.
They must have remade that, Hollywood. They couldn't just let that be, right? Is Jack Black playing the guy in the wheelchair?
I'm going to say, is it not the one that Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart, mate? Is that?
I don't know.
I mean, there's a Brian. I don't know if it was. There's a really fun film with Bryan Cranston and is it? I think it's Kevin Hart, and it's called The Upside.
Right.
And it's about a man with quadriplegia and an unemployed guy who looks after him, adapted from The Untouchables. There you go. Yeah, it's great. I have seen that. I really enjoyed it, I've got to say. I found it really good.
Didn't make 340 million or whatever it was.
No, $426 million. That's great. All right, well, next, really going the other direction on this. $549 million released in 2012. The lead in this is not a human being.
Okay. Ted.
Wow. $549 million.
That's amazing.
Wow. Now, this is where we really get the top three. You could really argue, are they comedies at all? Right? So, in third place, making $624 million. It is a comedy. There's no doubt that like it's played for laughs, but it's also absolutely another genre as well, like in the same way as you were saying about, these other things. So I'm not sure that people would immediately go, oh, that's a comedy, even though it is comedic. It is a sequel as well. It was released in 2012. It stars an Oscar winner.
Okay.
It stars.
Did they win? They didn't win an Oscar for it though. Just a previous Oscar winner.
Not for this.
Okay, so it's
not previous. They won an Oscar after this, not before.
Interesting. Well, that narrows it down a bit. Actress or actor? Won the Oscar for best actor or
the
actress?
Actor.
Okay, so it's a guy.
It's male-led.
Okay, is it Matthew McConaughey? Is it Magic Mike?
It is not, no.
Is it Christian Bale in that time he yelled at the guy for standing in front of his lights?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe, you know what? Like, there is a chance that the Oscar winner wasn't in the series by the time.
Good for you.
I've been holding on to that.
Oh, my God.
Soundbite for a while.
There is a chance that the Oscar winner wasn't still in the franchise by this stage. I can't remember, to be fair, but I'm assuming from the box office of $624 million that he was, but I'm not 100% sure.
I have no idea. You have to give me another clue. How many words in total?
So it's the third in the installment. There has been a reboot of this franchise without the original.
Holy cow!
With the other originals.
I mean, this is depressing because it shows why Hollywood keeps like remaking and rebooting, because the top four have all been like
sequels and prequels and remakes and absolutely. Okay, well, it's look, it's Men in Black. Men in Black 3. So,
what?
Yeah.
Hang on, 3?
Yeah, Men in Black 3.
What year did that come out?
2012.
Really? I feel like that was like 20 years ago, Men in Black 3.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
So $624 million.
Okay. 2 Oscar winners in that. Will? Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith are both Oscar winners.
Well, but I couldn't remember if Will Smith was still in it by the third one. That's what I was trying to work out, whether he was still.
That's the one with Jermaine Clement. I don't hate that film, but it does feel like that's comedy. I guess it's a comedy. Yeah, Ghostbusters is a comedy, so Men in Black.
I think that Men in Black is a comedy, but it's just also a whole other thing. That one fits on this list again, and these last two, you're going to have the same sort of debate about. They are definitely comedic movies. They're both full of punchlines.
Yeah,
but I think if you said what are those movies, people would use a different descriptor first. Before they said they were comedies.
And this is, you've Googled in the last decade, right? Comedies last decade?
Is in the last decade. And these are the 2 most recent movies on the list.
Yeah.
They're also in number 1 and 2 place.
Are they both Marvel movies?
They are both Marvel movies.
Is one Thor and one Guardians of the Galaxy?
They're good guesses, but $734 million for the movie in second place and $783 million for the movie in first place. They are not the movies you have mentioned. They are.
But they are both Marvel movies.
But they are both. Well, they're both not. No. I mean, no. I mean, this gives it all away. Yes, but no.
Okay. All right. So is the Spider-Man?
I think now they are, but they were in a transition period. Yeah, you're right in what not Spider-Man, but
so there's another. Oh, it's Deadpool.
Deadpool 2 and Deadpool. Yes,
they are the two highest grossing comedies of the last 10 years. One and two. Holy shit. It all comes full circle. I put the Ryan Reynolds glasses on and I made this happen. Like his influence. I mean, the dude is incredibly successful.
He's managed to infiltrate himself into everything. Even this conversation, as we discover, once again, everything ends with a win to Ryan Reynolds.
All right, that's a good a place as any to finish it. Podcast Mike never called us back, so he'll be fired. You will never hear from Podcast Mike again.
To get another guy called Mike.
You get one shot with us, and he messed up. Before we go, I do want to plug a little series we've done on TOFOP with Friends. It comes out each Friday called The Biggest Stories in All of Norway. There'll be 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes up by the time you hear this. I'm immensely proud of this series, and that pride has very little to do with you or me and more to do with Elias, our friend from Norway, who is just such a hilarious, magnetic storyteller. So if you've listened to any of our previous emails from who we called Elias, but we found out his name since it's Elias, you would have heard some of these hilarious stories about him and his brothers on this farm in Norway. Well, that was just the tip of the iceberg. So you can find them all in the TOFOP feed. The new episodes come out each Friday, the biggest stories in all of Norway. Also, while you are checking out others, that you can go to tofop.com. There's episodes of 2 Guys, 1 Cup. We're getting near finals time, which is exciting for everyone. Will know today whether or not his Bulldogs have got 1 foot in the finals. It looks like the Saints are almost there, but who knows? 1 round to go. Everything could go to shit. So 2 Guys, 1 Cup, which comes out every Tuesday on the Listener app. And then, of course, there is Philosophy, which is back to full strength.
Yeah, we're going to record some new episodes coming up as well. So it's, coming out regularly. You can catch... and I'm really loving Philosophy. I'm talking to a lot of, only comedians at the moment, and that's been really cool. I've got to speak to a whole bunch of people I've wanted to talk to for ages. So, just check that feed out. Take a risk on some names you haven't heard before. They're some of the more interesting conversations. And I'm doing some improvised shows at the moment at the Sydney Comedy Store every second week on a Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock. Very ABC audience friendly time, 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And they're really fun shows, what you're talking about, Will. So I would love if people would come and check those out.
And lastly, if we could encourage you to please support us on Patreon. We've had a little bit of trouble getting sponsors this year, you may have noticed, despite our best efforts. We're very happy with how the show's going. We're very happy with how regular we're making it, all the extra content. But look, I think the world thought a recession was coming at the end of last year, and it turns out people who have money to spend on podcasts decided not to spend any money this year.
It's one of the early signs of the recession has been... There was a boom period for podcasts, and there was things everywhere, and there was gold in their heels, and it's starting to. There's a lot of articles recently about the decline in the amount of podcasts, and I think everyone started a podcast during the pandemic. They're like, "Oh, I'll start a podcast," and then when they were back doing normal things, they're like, "Oh, doing a podcast all the time is a lot of work."
So that is still the best way to support the show. And not only that, but you get access to not only full videos of every episode of TOFOP, but ad-free episodes of all our shows, heaps of great bonus content.
So maybe banned episodes of FOFOP with Cam James. If we can find the original tapes.
Yeah, Podcast Mike ever turns out phone calls. But that is it for TOFOP this week. We're glad to be back. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
Listener.